After detailed detective work, experts now believe this is the only surviving piece of clothing worn by Elizabeth I.
What an artificial intelligence just uncovered, hidden inside Queen Elizabeth I's DNA, has sent shockwaves through the entire scientific world. Because this discovery was never supposed to happen. Her body has remained sealed beneath Westminster Abbey for more than 400 years. No one has ever opened that tomb. No one was ever meant to. But a secret team of geneticists and AI specialists found a way to virtually rebuild her full DNA without ever touching the coffin. When the results came in, lead researcher Dr. Elena Vasquez called her colleague at Cambridge at almost 3 o'clock in the morning and said just 5 words: "James, we have a problem." The AI had discovered something buried deep in Elizabeth's genetic code, a biological secret so explosive that 3 senior team members wanted the findings destroyed and never published. So they were overruled, and what the AI revealed next will change everything you thought you knew about the Virgin Queen. Exhuming a queen of Elizabeth's importance is politically impossible. It would need an act of Parliament, royal approval, and trigger a massive media storm. Everyone believed her secrets would stay buried forever. Everyone except this team. They called it the Tudor Genome Project, a highly secretive international effort that brought together geneticists who worked on the Richard III identification and top AI engineers from Silicon Valley. For 5 years, they worked in almost total silence. Their goal sounded ambitious enough: use artificial intelligence to reconstruct the DNA of one of history's most powerful women using only tiny traces of biological material left on her personal artifacts. But what made this project truly different was the extreme secrecy. Funding came through 3 different universities. There were no public announcements. Every team member signed strict non-disclosure agreements with heavy financial penalties. They wanted full control over when and how the world would learn what they found. What most historians had dismissed forgeries or simple curiosities, old rings, gloves, and letters, this team treated as biological time capsules. And they had a powerful new tool no one before them possessed, an artificial intelligence system they nicknamed Argus, after the all-seeing giant from Greek mythology. Argus was far more than a normal data processor. It was a highly advanced pattern recognition engine trained on millions of ancient and modern genomes, and it could spot degraded DNA fragments that no human could separate from normal contamination. Dr. Vasquez's team traveled across the world collecting microscopic samples from artifacts with the strongest proof of authenticity. They focused on 3 main items: the checkers ring that Elizabeth almost never removed and was believed to hold a lock of her hair, a miniature portrait of Anne Boleyn, a pair of her ceremonial gloves still containing trace skin cells deep in the fabric after 4 centuries, and a state letter to the King of France, sealed with wax pressed by Elizabeth's own thumb. Each artifact had a clear documented chain of custody going back hundreds of years, which was essential for proving they were genuine. Here's the key point. Taken separately, each sample was almost worthless. At 400 years of decay and contamination from many different hands would have made any normal laboratory declare them useless. But Argus was no ordinary lab. Its first job was filtration, carefully separating Elizabeth's biological material from centuries of background noise. The AI cross-referenced the damaged fragments with verified genetic profiles from her known bloodline, including Richard III, her distant cousin, and confirmed mitochondrial DMO from the Boleyn family. It performed billions of comparisons, removed one contaminant after another, and finally isolated only the sequences that matched the expected maternal and paternal lines. Billions of data points processed in just weeks led to a conclusion that stopped the entire team in their tracks. With 99% certainty, the hair, skin cells, and the single epithelial cell trapped in the wax all belonged to the same woman, directly connected to both the Tudor and Boleyn lines. Dr. James Whitfield at Cambridge described the moment simply: "We expected fragments, we got a ghost." If this is already gripping you, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because what the AI discovered next makes this confirmation seem like a small detail. Using a process called genetic temporal modeling, Argus treated those confirmed fragments like pieces of a shattered ancient manuscript. It compared them to tens of thousands of 16th century European genomes, learned exactly what DNA from that time and place should look like, and slowly filled in the missing gaps, chromosome by chromosome. Imagine restoring a destroyed painting. If you know the artist, the period, the style, and you have enough original brush strokes, an advanced AI can predict with remarkable accuracy what the missing parts looked like. That is exactly what Argus did with Elizabeth's genome. The result was something never achieved before: a complete virtual reconstruction of Queen Elizabeth I's genome, a full genetic blueprint for a woman who died in 1603. And hidden inside that blueprint was something that made Dr. Vasquez's hand shake when she called at nearly 3 a.m. The team's original goal, the one they used to get funding, was to solve the mystery of her death. Her final weeks were famously horrifying. After losing her closest companions, she fell into what her doctors described as a deep and unbreakable melancholy. She stopped eating. She spoke of spirits in the room. For her last 4 days, she refused to lie down, standing propped up by her exhausted ladies-in-waiting, or sitting on cushions on the floor, pointing at her mouth in terrible pain, but refusing to speak. Her court was frozen in fear. No one understood what was happening. Her physicians could do nothing. The most powerful woman in the world was dying before their eyes, and nobody could explain why. Historians have long pointed to the Venetian ceruse, the thick white lead makeup she applied heavily to cover the terrible scars left by smallpox in 1562. That mixture of white lead and vinegar was highly corrosive. It burned the skin beneath, forcing her to apply even more to hide the fresh damage. It also caused severe hair loss, which is why she wore the famous red wigs. It was a destructive cycle with no way out. The more she tried to appear as a perfect queen, and the more the poison destroyed her from the outside in. Argus confirmed all of this. Her genetic markers showed she was unusually vulnerable to heavy metal poisoning. A specific variant in her metabolic genes meant her body could not remove the lead the way a normal person's would. Her liver would have been badly scarred and shrunken. The damage was cumulative and permanent. But then the AI detected something completely different, a cluster of rare mutations deep on her X chromosome that had nothing to do with lead poisoning and everything to do with who Elizabeth truly was. The biggest mystery of Elizabeth's life was right in front of everyone: her title as the Virgin Queen. For 44 years, this defined her. She was not just a queen. She was Gloriana, Astrea, the mythical virgin goddess returned to earth, married only to her country. As she famously declared, She dangled the possibility of marriage in front of every major power in Europe. King Philip II of Spain, who wanted to pull England back to Catholicism. Francis, Duke of Anjou, the French prince she teasingly called her frog. And even Robert Dudley, her childhood friend and closest companion, whom she kept hoping for decades. But she never said yes. Not once. Historians have always seen this as brilliant political strategy. By remaining single, she kept England independent. By almost marrying, she turned the mere possibility of alliance into her strongest diplomatic tool. But the AI tells a very different story. And it is not about clever politics. It is about survival. According to the Argus analysis, those X chromosome mutations match a condition known today as androgen insensitivity syndrome, or AIS. Yet in this condition, a person has XY chromosomes, genetically male, but the body cannot respond to male hormones. The person develops physically as female, looks female, and identifies as female, but has no uterus and cannot have children. The condition is completely invisible from the outside. Someone with AIS can live their whole life without knowing unless they try to conceive. This changes everything. Elizabeth was not choosing to be the Virgin Queen. She had no choice at all. Her entire reign, every flirtation, every dramatic refusal, none of it was political genius. It was a lifelong cover-up for a secret that would have destroyed her immediately. In the 16th century, a queen's main duty was to produce a legitimate heir to secure the dynasty. That was not optional. If her condition had ever been discovered, and her enemies, especially Mary, Queen of Scots, who had a healthy son, James, would have called her unfit, unnatural, even monstrous. Catholic powers across Europe would have used it as proof that God had cursed the Protestant throne. Civil war would have broken out overnight. Everything would have been lost. So she did the only thing possible. She turned her secret into a powerful myth. She could not be a mother, so she became a goddess instead. Together with her most trusted advisors, Spy Master Francis Walsingham and Chief Minister William Cecil, she built an entirely new identity around a biological reality that made motherhood impossible. Every portrait was carefully controlled. Every public appearance was staged. Every word was chosen to strengthen the image of a divine, an untouchable ruler who had chosen lifelong virginity as a sacred duty. The AI also explains her famous long, slender fingers seen in every portrait, a known physical trait of this condition. Women with AIS often have taller, slimmer builds and longer fingers. The thick white makeup was never just vanity. It was armor that erased any hint of physical difference and presented a perfect, untouchable icon to the world. She did not simply hide behind the paint. She lived inside it. Remember her famous speech at Tilbury when the Spanish Armada was approaching. "I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too." Many now believe she was speaking a literal hidden truth inside that battle cry, a secret confession that no one in the crowd could possibly understand. She was telling them exactly what she was, and then they cheered her without ever knowing the real meaning. She lived her entire life performing a role, never letting anyone get close enough to discover the truth, never allowing herself real intimacy or vulnerability. Every relationship was political theater. Every suitor was just a prop in a performance that could never end. That is the true story of the Virgin Queen, not genius, but brilliant, lonely, and terrifying survival. And the AI was not done yet. What it found next had nothing to do with her body. It was about her blood. And this discovery hit the team even harder. The team examined Elizabeth's paternal and maternal bloodlines to confirm her place in the Tudor dynasty. This was supposed to be the straightforward part. Dr. Vasquez expected clear results. Instead, Dr. Anna Whitfield went completely silent for nearly a full minute on the phone call. The maternal side was perfect. Her mitochondrial DNA, passed only from mother to daughter, matched the Boleyn family exactly. There was no doubt she was Anne Boleyn's daughter. The problem was on the father's side. They compared her genome against the established Y chromosome markers of the Tudor line, confirmed through Richard III and other verified male descendants. The Y chromosome passes almost unchanged from father to son. If Elizabeth was truly Henry VIII's daughter, there should have been a clear match. The result? No match. 0. Dr. Marcus Chen, statistical geneticist from Imperial College London, ran the comparison 3 separate times. He changed the parameters. He widened the margin of error. The results stayed the same every time. As he later said, he felt physically sick. The numbers don't lie, he told colleagues. Henry VIII is not her father. This changes everything. The greatest monarch of the Tudor age, the woman who gave her name to an entire era of English history, may not have been a Tudor at all. By the laws of her own time, she would have been a usurper with no legitimate claim to the throne. Everything she built, everything she fought for, everything she sacrificed, rested on a bloodline that was not hers. It also means something else historians have argued about for 5 centuries. Anne Boleyn was unfaithful to the king, exactly as Henry claimed when he had her arrested, tried on charges of treason and adultery, and executed at the Tower of London. Henry accused her of relations with 5 different men, including her own brother. And history has always treated those accusations as cruel lies invented by a desperate tyrant who wanted to get rid of one wife and marry Jane Seymour. This AI data has just shattered that narrative. Not all the charges, but the central one. Infidelity may have been true. And here is what makes it even more haunting. Did Elizabeth know? Her father declared her illegitimate when she was only 2 years old. Her mother was beheaded. She spent her childhood a political pawn, pushed aside, brought back, pushed aside again, never fully safe in the line of succession. Many historians have wondered where her extraordinary drive and iron will came from. This data offers a dark possible answer. She may have known her entire life that her claim to the throne was built on a lie, and that constant fear of exposure may have fueled everything she achieved. The paternal markers point toward a noble family within Anne Boleyn's circle. The strongest possibilities are 2 men long whispered about in history. Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland, the man Anne truly loved before Henry VIII forced the relationship to end, and Mark Smeaton, the court musician executed with her, long thought to have been tortured into a false confession. This data suggests he may have been telling the truth, but the AI revealed one final secret from her DNA. And this one is about murder. The team performed what they called a virtual autopsy. Using the reconstructed genome, Argus created a complete digital model of Elizabeth's body, her organs, blood chemistry, nervous system, and metabolism, and replayed her final weeks in exact detail. And the official story has always seemed reasonable. a 69-year-old woman grieving the loss of her closest friends, including her cousin Catherine Carey, still shaken by the rebellion and execution of Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, plus decades of lead poisoning from the Venetian ceruse, a body exhausted by stress and sorrow. Case closed. Argus disagreed. Lead had damaged her liver, yes, but the model showed it could not explain her actual symptoms: the burning pain in her mouth, the inability to lie down, or the severe muscle stiffness that kept her standing for 4 full days. Something else was in her system. So, Argus ran a full toxicology analysis, testing thousands of known poisons against her virtual body. It found a match: a rare and sophisticated blend of aconite, wolfsbane, and atropine from belladonna, deadly nightshade. So this was no simple poison like arsenic. It was a carefully crafted assassin's cocktail that only someone with deep knowledge of herbs and toxicology could create. In the simulation, small doses of belladonna caused fever, flushed skin, and delirium, symptoms that would look like natural illness to any doctor in 1603. Meanwhile, wolfsbane quietly attacked the nervous system. It started with burning, tingling pain in the mouth, exactly why Elizabeth kept pointing there but could not speak. Then came terrible stiffness that made lying down unbearable. Standing became the only position that gave any relief. Finally, over several days, it caused slow respiratory failure. Her lungs simply stopped working. According to the model, Elizabeth did not die peacefully in her sleep. She was slowly and deliberately suffocated while fully conscious. You're unable to cry out for help. She knew exactly what was happening but could not tell anyone. The possible suspects are very limited. Foreign agents from Spain or the Vatican are possible, but the close, repeated access needed to give this slow-acting poison over many days points much closer to home. The most obvious candidates are James of Scotland, the impatient heir who would inherit the English throne the moment she died, or the most disturbing possibility of all, Sir Robert Cecil, her own Secretary of State, and son of her most trusted advisor, William Cecil. Robert Cecil had already been secretly writing to James for months, preparing a smooth transfer of power behind Elizabeth's back. He had everything to gain from a quiet, controlled death, and everything to lose from a grieving, unpredictable queen who might suddenly change the succession. Did he choose a quiet end over uncertainty? History may have already shown the answer. Within hours of Elizabeth's last breath, Cecil had James proclaimed king. The transition was perfectly smooth, almost as if it had been rehearsed. This is still a simulation, not physical proof from an opened tomb. No court would convict based on AI modeling alone. But what keeps Dr. Vasquez awake is how perfectly everything fits. Every symptom, every secret, every political move, every strange detail from those final terrifying days. 400 years of mystery falling into place like the tumblers of a lock. The Virgin Queen was far more complex, far more tragic, and far stronger than history has ever admitted. She was not only fighting enemies abroad, she was fighting her own biology, and her own bloodline, and in the end, a hidden killer she never suspected. She held her throne for 44 years while carrying a secret that could have destroyed her at any moment. She turned her deepest weakness into legendary strength and carried every truth with her to the grave, until Argus finally brought it back into the light. So, here is the question. Should they open the tomb at Westminster Abbey and discover once and for all whether the AI was right. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video made you see Elizabeth Vasquez in a completely new way, subscribe and turn on notifications. The secrets that artificial intelligence is pulling from history are only just beginning.